guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we're going to be making a really big piece. I'm going to be making a big pink polar bear. Say that 5 times fast. Anyways guys, I really hope you enjoyed this project. Let's get started. Okay guys, the first thing we're going to work on is going to be the head of our polar bear. Now because we're making such a large piece, we can't make the whole head out of clay. It would be way too heavy and it probably wouldn't even bake. So I'm going to make majority of the head out of foam. So I got this nice foam ball from the craft store and I'm going to start flattening some of the sides by trimming off some of the foam. I'm mainly starting by making where I want the forehead to go, and then I'm going to start tapering it in where the cheeks would be. Okay, so I'm pretty much happy with how the foam looks right now. You don't need a complicated shape. We're mainly just trying to get the basic shape of it because all of this is going to get covered in fur and you're not going to see most of it. So you don't have to like go out of the way to make very small different details to it because you will not see it. So I'm just going to clean up this whole disaster of a mess real quick and then we can move on to making the clay pieces for the face. Okay, now the first thing we need to do to our foam ball is completely cover it in tin foil. That way we can remove the clay pieces and bake them separately because this foam cannot go in the oven. It'll create toxic fumes, it'll melt, it'll do a whole bunch of nasty things and we just don't want it. So we're going to make it really easy to where we can just remove the clay pieces. After I got the face completely covered, I took a large lump of tinfoil and shaped it into a rough idea of what I want the snout for the bear to look like. I used my hot glue gun to lightly glue it onto the tinfoil that is covering the ball. This is mainly just so that it'll hold into place so we can cover it in clay. Okay, so now we can start working with our clay. So I'm going to completely cover that lump of tinfoil for the snout with a nice layer of clay, and then we can start adding details to it. Okay, so the snout is completely covered, it's nice and smoothed out, and I straightened up the lines a little bit where it meets the face. So now I'm just going to take a strip of clay and we're going to mark where the lip of the mouth is going to be. And we're going to lay that out and blend it in. Now because I'm going to be covering the face in fur, I'm going to be making this lip a lot deeper than if I was just sculpting a normal face. I'm doing this because we need a spot to start tucking the fur around the lip and it needs to go in something. So that's mainly why it looks a little bit more pronounced than you probably would have it if you're just sculpting a face. Once I was happy with the shape of the mouth, we're going to move on to adding the nose. So I'm just going to take a large lump of clay, put it at the end of the snout, and we're going to start blending it into the face and then start sculpting the nostrils and things. Now again, because we're putting fur over the face afterwards, we are going to be sculpting this a little bit differently than if we were just sculpting an entire face. So with the nose, you're going to create a nice lip around it so you can tuck the fur around it and create a nice seam. Normally, if you were sculpting a nose onto it, you would have it nice and flush and then you would use little scratches to blend the nose into the fur. Okay, so the snout is pretty much done right now and we're going to move on to adding the bear's eyes. I'm going to be using these little glass balls to mark where the eyes are going to go, so I'm going to use my hot glue and glue them onto the tin foil. So I'm going to place those and I'm going to completely cover them in clay and smooth them out to make them nice and round. After that, we're going to start adding some clay underneath to create kind of a cheekbone, and then we're going to start putting clay over the eye and shaping the little tear ducts and different things that are going to be around the eye. And like the nose, I'm creating a nice little lip around the eye so we can tuck our fur around it. Because the eyes and the nose are going to be the only thing on the face that are not going to be covered in fur. Now if you notice how weird the face is shaped right now, you really don't want to bake this in one solid piece, so I'm going to cut the eyes off of the snout, take those off, and then take the snout off of the face as well, and we're going to bake it into 3 different pieces. So I'm going to put all 3 of these pieces in the oven at 275 Fahrenheit for roughly 45 to 55 minutes. The snout's pretty large, so you want to give it enough time to get fully baked. Once all your clay pieces are nice and cooled, we can start gluing them back onto the foam face. So I'm going to take my hot glue gun and we're going to glue these all onto the face where they originally were when we were sculpting them. Now we're just going to do a very simple paint job for the nose and the eyes. So I'm going to primer them with a black and then we can move on to adding details. Once the black is dried, I'm going to start using some browns to lighten up the eyelids and the nose. I'm wanting the inside of the nostrils to stay black, and then we're going to start lightening up the top of the nose to try and make it stand out. Now normally a bear's eyes are brown, but because we're doing a pink polar bear, I don't think it really matters, so I'm just going to do the color that I want to do. So I'm going to do them blue. So I'm going to start by painting the further outside part of the eye a nice dark blue, and we're going to start lightening that as we go, blending it until we get to a point where we want to put the pupil. For the pupil, we're just using some black paint, and we're going to straighten up the line where the iris meets the pupil, and then we're going to just clean up the rest of the eye with the black paint. After that, we're just going to add some white highlights to it, and we're pretty much done with the painting at this point. So I'm going to resin these pieces, but if you don't like using resin, just use a clear varnish or a spray-on sealant or whatever you really want to use to protect the paint. Okay, we're going to start on the sewing now, and because I'm trying something new with the paws, I'm going to start with those first, and then we're going to move on to the body. So for the paws, I basically have the top and the bottom of them. It's a very simple shape. I drew out a paw pad pattern on this, and we're going to start cutting it out. And if you notice on the red fabric, I also drew out the same pattern. We're going to cut those pieces out, and we're going to sew them into the holes that we cut out on the fabric. After we have all the little toe pads and stuff sewn into place, it'll look kind of wonky because the fur for the feet is kind of long and you're really not seeing the details for it, but afterwards we're going to shave this so you can get a better look at it. Okay, now it's time to start working on the bear's claws. Now you probably recognize these claws from my video when I showed you guys how to make resin claws using Play-Doh as a molding mechanism, so I'm super excited that we're finally using them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our claws and take some strips of felt and we're going to glue that around the base of it. This is to act kind of like the little skin that goes around your claw. After we got all of our claws felted, we're going to take our claws and start sewing them together. So the front ones I'm going to do with 5 claws, and normally a bear does have 5 claws on each foot, but the back feet I'm just going to do 4. After you have all the claws sewn together, you can start sewing the foot around the claws. Just make sure the claws are facing the correct direction so you don't have your claws aiming up and your paw pads on the tops of the feet or something weird like that. So just pay attention. So I'm going to sew the bottom of the foot to the claws and then I'm going to sew the top of it. So after you get your sewing done, you basically have this little glove-like thing. All the claws are inside and you're just going to push and flip it right side out and you have your foot. Now for sewing the body, I left the pattern really simple. The body itself has maybe 5 pieces total for the pattern. Right here you have the sides of the body along with the sides of the neck. And then right here I have the belly of the piece and the bottom of the neck. I made it to where the inside parts of the legs are already connected to the belly piece, so it's a lot easier to sew. Okay, so the first sewing we're going to do is we're going to sew the bottom of the neck to the belly piece, and then the sides of the neck to the sides of the body. And then we're going to take the belly piece and we're going to start sewing the sides of the body to it. So the first sewing you're going to do connecting these together is sew the neck together and going down the leg. So you're just doing the front of the leg, and then we're going to add the paws. Now to connect the paws, you're going to take the paw and you're going to find the middle of the very top of the paw, and you're going to connect that where the two leg pieces have been sewn together. So basically the front of the leg is connected to the front of the paw, and you're going to sew down until you get to the back of the paw. You're going to do this for both sides. If you want, you can sew this in one consecutive sew, but I decided this was a lot easier so that my paw wouldn't twist after sewing it, and it stayed nice and even. Once you have your front paws on, you're going to sew that leg closed, go down the belly, and then down the back leg. And then we can do the same thing connecting the paws to the back legs. Okay, so the last bit of sewing we need to do is just add the tail to the bear. For this, the pattern's really simple. It's just a smaller version of what I did for the paws. I sewed two pieces together, flipped it right side out, stuffed it, and then sewed it to the back end of the bear. After everything is sewn, you're going to take the body and you're going to flip it right side out, and then we can probably stuff the legs first. We'll wait on the body until after we get the head connected. So I'm going to take our foam head and we're going to start gluing the fabric for the neck all the way around the head. Now you'll notice that the fabric for the neck did not reach all the way to the top of the head for us to close the neck off. Now this is a really simple fix. Just measure that distance between the two pieces of fabric and create a nice triangle with a base about that distance. You're going to glue that in place and then sew along the two sides to close the neck up. And then of course, after you have the head glued on, we can finish stuffing the body and sewing the rest of it up. Now before we start adding the fur to the face of the bear, we need to add some ears. So I cut out a very simple ear shape out of felt, and we're going to glue this to some fabric, cut that out, and then glue it onto the bear. Okay, now it's finally time to start adding fur to the face. How I did this so the fur would work on the face was I just measured the different sides of the face to make some very simple patterns to go on it. These are easily adjustable, so you can cut pieces off and add them as you go, so you don't have to make them perfectly fit. So I'm going to start by gluing on the forehead, and then we'll move on to the chin and then keep adding fur until the whole face is covered. Okay, once the face is completely covered in fur, we can move on to trimming it and shaping it. So I'm going to use a hair trimmer along with my scissors. You'll want sharp scissors for this, otherwise you'll kind of get a choppy effect. So I'm going to go over and shorten the snout fur, and then we're going to just kind of blend that into the face. I'm also going to do the same thing to the bottom of all the feet so that we can see the paw pads that we did. After I was done trimming the fur on the face and paws, I decided to add a few gemstones to the forehead of the bear just for fun. Now I'm just going to take my acrylic paints and I'm going to add a few details to the face, some shadowings and stuff, and then we're pretty much done. Okay guys, and that's how I made a big pink polar bear. I had so much fun making her. I'm gonna have her in my Etsy shop, so make sure to check the links down below if you want to buy her. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!